Hi there and welcome to the Wellbeing with Omni-cast episode 2. Today's episode is called Thoughts, the Root of It All. I'll just sort of explain a bit about what we're doing. So if you haven't listened to me before, this is the Omni-cast. Basically, an Omni-cast is a Facebook Live, a YouTube, a podcast. It's also a blog. It's all the things in one place. I'm trying to save a little bit of time there and get everything out in one place. Now, who am I? I'm Bevan. I'm the Wellbeing Whiz. I'm someone who suffered from anxiety quite badly, just like you guys out there, and I decided one day to sort of make a change and do things to help people out there with anxiety. If you listen to last week's podcast, it was about fear and how fear affected you. And so I was talking about how my fear led me to become anxious. And basically I was the same as you guys out there. I had terribly sort of anxious thoughts. I was projecting forward all the time. I was never sort of living in the moment. I was never enjoying where I was. I was always sort of making things worse in my mind and running away with myself. I suffered for a long time, and what I did in the end was I turned that around. I started sort of to realise that the only way to help myself was to study my anxiety, become a student of my anxiety, and that's led me to becoming a life coach and trying to help you guys out there as well. So what's today's episode about? Well, today's episode is about thoughts, and that was a huge thing when I was anxious. Thoughts were the thing that was making me ill. I was worried too much about everything. I was overthinking, over sort of projecting, over worrying, looking into the future too much, and thoughts were the root of it. And last week, as I say, we talked about fear as a concept, and fear mainly comes from thought. So I thought, let's now go a step back with this week's, and let's look at how thoughts affect you. What are thoughts? And basically, it's one of the main concepts that I coach on is everything comes from thought. So today we're going to look at where they come from, how thoughts affect us. We're going to take some exercise to understand our thoughts a little bit more and take ownership back of our thoughts, because that's one thing that I point out to people who are anxious. You're sort of not living deliberately. Your thoughts are driving you. Your thoughts are what are making you live in a certain way. And actually, if you're not the one directing those thoughts, if those thoughts are happening to you rather than you picking them, then you're not living a deliberate way. Now, as always, in these Omnicasts, I like to look at the definition of what a thought is. So I looked on the old Google again, and it come up with this. I'll just read it off my screen here. Like I said last week, I'm not a professional. I'm doing this from my kitchen. A thought is a noun. It's an idea or opinion produced by thinking or occurring suddenly in the mind. So I'll go through that again. A thought is a noun. It's an idea or opinion produced by thinking or occurring suddenly in the mind. Now, the definition there hints at the crux of the matter that I'm going to talk about today. It occurs suddenly in the mind. It suggests some sort of passive element. It suggests that we're not 100% responsible for what we're thinking, like thoughts pop into our mind almost. See, with thoughts, scientists can't really agree where they come from. There's lots of suggestions. I mean, subjectively, thoughts come from nowhere, right? Thoughts just pop into our head, they emerge in the form of words, and they leave our mouths, right? Objectively, thoughts come from some sort of neural process in your brain. However, no one has really ever worked out exactly where they come from. Now, estimates say that there's between sort of 60 and 80,000 thoughts go through your brain a day. And that is huge. Imagine that. If these thoughts are negative thoughts or thoughts that are unhelpful, 60 to 80,000 of them going through your brain in a day. That's crazy. That's like 2,500, 3,500 thoughts per hour. That's a lot of things going through your mind. And when I was anxious, that was the biggest thing, the sheer amount of thoughts that were going through the mind that I was paying attention to just overwhelmed me and put me in situations where I couldn't go out, couldn't do anything. So almost couldn't react to life that was happening around me. Anyway, back to the discovery of how anxiety works. I had this huge realization one afternoon. It's the weirdest thing ever. I was sat watching television, and I was sat watching the Ricky Gervais show. I don't know if you've ever seen it. It's like a sort of cartoon of his podcast that he used to do in the old days with Carl Pilkington, Stephen Merchant. They all sit there talking about stuff. Now, this was at the height of my anxiety. I was really, really struggling at the time, and I was kind of watching it to try and take my mind off stuff and occupy my mind a little bit. And Carl Pilkington said the strangest thing, and he said, I can't work out whether I control my brain or my brain controls me. And they all just started laughing at him, and they were going, oh, Carl, you're an idiot. You know, of course you control your brain is you. But it, for some reason, hit home with me really hard. I was like, well, hang on a minute. Does my brain control me, or do I control my brain? And like, the number of times I think that Carl Pilkington's so close to genius and then sort of messes it up at the end. This was the one that really sort of got to me. And I was like, well, hang on. Do I control my brain? Am I controlling my thoughts? They're kind of coming in. They're in my voice. So it must be me. It must be what I think. I must be worried about the future. I must be scared of this, that, and the other. But actually, when I started looking into it and I started studying people like Eckhart Tolle and sort of Byron Katie and people like this, I was looking into thoughts and where they came from. And actually, I got it all wrong. My thoughts weren't me. My brain was controlling me and giving me these thoughts, and I was reacting to them, but they weren't actually me. All right, they were in my voice, but they were just things that were popping into my head. You remember the definition before? Things that just come into your brain. And I was reacting to every single one of these, picking the negative ones, picking the ones that weren't helpful, and living my life by them. And this was part of the reason I suddenly realized that I could control my anxiety. I could make a change. What I was doing was focusing on all the unhelpful stuff, all the thoughts that didn't help my life. And instead I could focus on the positive ones, not the negative ones. Focus on the negative ones, that would be crazy. Anyway, so it's really odd how someone like Carl Pilkington, everyone teases and is seen as this sort of comedy character, led me to sorting my brain out, and it led me onto the path to people like Eckhart Tolle. It led me onto the path of people like Abraham, people who are sort of telling you about where your thoughts come from and how to give you positive thoughts. All came from this sort of comedy with a little sort of egg-headed Carl Pilkington fella. So that's super interesting. So from this, I realised that my own anxiety was it came from my thought patterns. It came from where my thoughts were. And like I said, big spoiler here, you are not your thoughts. Super important to know. I always thought, like I said before, my thoughts were me. Everything was coming out in my voice, so there were my opinions, my beliefs, everything that was sort of coming in my brain was me creating it. All these negative connotations was me. And all it was actually is thoughts are coming into your mind. They're created by things like outside factors. You smell something, that reminds me of whatever, the weekend I had in Morocco, that smell, it all comes back to you. Can you see what I mean? You hear a noise, you hear a song, it reminds you of a friend or a situation. These thoughts are created by outside factors. You're not conjuring them up and making yourself feel bad. You're just choosing to focus on certain ones. And that's it. A thought is a sentence in your mind. That's the big thing to realize. It's just a sentence in your mind created by something that's popped in there. So if you're giving the attention to unhelpful thoughts, these sentences that are popping into your mind, you're not living sort of deliberately. You're living as a sort of slave to your thoughts. And this was a huge realization for me. And I hope you guys can share it with me, that thoughts are very much like clouds in the sky. If you see them like that, they kind of drift by you. You sort of can pay attention to some clouds, not pay attention to others. Thoughts are exactly the same as that. They're going through your mind, they're passing through, and you can choose whether you pay attention to a certain thought or whether you pay attention to another thought. And that's a really big realization for people with anxiety in particular. You are choosing to pay attention to anxious thoughts. It may not feel like it. It may feel like your anxiety is something separate to you, but it's not. You are the one that is in control, and you're the one that is paying attention. You've just got yourself into a habit of looking at the more unhelpful thoughts rather than the helpful ones. Now, there's no sort of outside agency, if you like. There's no sort of, a lot of my clients come to me and I talk to them about, my anxiety, as if it's this creature, this monster that's controlling them. And to realize that your thoughts are being chosen by you is then to realize, to break that down, that your anxiety is not this monster that's out to get you. It's just a habit you've fallen into and you're choosing the wrong thoughts. It's so important to know. Now, another really important thing is how your thoughts work. Your thoughts create your emotions. Super important. And for a good example of that is if you sit there and you think of something that genuinely makes you happy. Try and do that now while I'm talking to you. Just sit there and think of something that really makes you happy. Something that's happened in the past, a moment, an occasion, anything at all that just makes you genuinely happy. And if you do that, you can feel that emotion of happiness coming back from that thought. Does that make sense? So if you think of, I don't know, a birthday party, surprise birthday party, everyone pops out and says, you see all your friends there. It's that moment that creates that emotion. And you can feel how happiness feels. You can feel how it sort of rises up. It's that nice warm feeling in your chest. And a thought has created that. Okay? It's really important to understand that your thoughts create your emotions. Now, switch that round and try and think of something really sad. Okay? Something awful. Like I always think back to, my dog died and it was really sad and it really affected me. And if I think of that moment, that thought creates that emotion. I feel it there deep inside. It's that kind of hollow, empty, sort of heavy feeling. And you can see how thoughts create your emotions. Super important to know for people with anxiety. You're creating the emotion of anxiety with these sort of darker, unhelpful thoughts, right? Now, the next clever thing in this process is your thoughts create your emotions. Your emotions then create your actions. So, for example, you're thinking of something happy, you get that happy feeling, you then go and do something based on that happy feeling, right? The same with if you are having a sad feeling, you have a sad feeling, then you go and do something that's not sort of good for you. Like people feel sad, they go and have a drink. People feel sad, they go and sort of eat more. All these kind of like negative actions are being created by negative thoughts, negative emotions that create negative actions, right? Now then, your actions then create your results. So your thoughts create your emotions create your actions. You do something, then that creates your results. So you can see someone gets upset, they think a sad thought, oh, I'm really fat and ugly, everyone hates me. They feel upset, their action is to go and eat more, so comfort, eat, whatever. The result is they're not any thinner, you know? So it's like a sort of cycle you can get yourself into. If you get into these unhelpful thoughts, you can see how they can affect your life. You can see how I say thoughts are the root of everything. And like I say to my clients, if you can change the way you are thinking, you can change the way you are living. And it's this cycle of thought, emotion, action, result that is the secret to getting yourself back to living deliberately. Now then, another thing I try and get people to do, because it's very difficult to know about your thoughts, I try and get people to sit there and sort of take a third-party perspective with their thoughts. We call it like a watching perspective. So every thought that comes in, you can study whether it's helpful or unhelpful, or whether it's sort of positive or negative, whether it's going to help you or not help you. And this third-party perspective is really hard for some people to do. But once you practice it, it enables you to become like a student of your thoughts and work out where you're sending your emotions, your actions, and your results. Now, the best way to do this is get a piece of paper, spend 10 minutes just blasting all your thoughts onto that piece of paper. Don't judge yourself. Don't try and be creative. Just get them all down. Just rapidly write them all down. If you have to draw pictures to go with them, whatever, doesn't matter. Then walk away and come back and look at those thoughts. It's a lot easier when the thoughts are out of your head and onto the paper to look at them and say, well, that's negative, that's unhelpful. What did that one make me feel like? You can study them a lot more easily than if they're in your head. So this is what I suggest to people is have this sort of thought download, if you like, chuck them all onto paper and see what's going through your mind. Because if you're in the middle of that thought process, it's very difficult to sort of take that third party watching perspective and see how they're affecting you. And that's a lot of the time. I tell people to sort of become student of their thoughts and really take a bit of time out to look at where they're coming from. Right, so also sort of, if you think about it, if you write them all down on a piece of paper, it gives you an idea of what mindset you're in. You might not know that at the time, a lot of your thoughts are creating a lot of your emotions. It's creating a lot of your actions, a lot of your results. If you are aware of what mindset you're in, you can maybe make the correct changes, concentrate on the good thoughts that are coming in, and be able to change your results. Now, I'll do a lot more work in the future on thoughts and actions and emotions and results, but it's just this concept that thoughts are not you. You can choose the thoughts that go through your mind. You can choose the positive thoughts and act on those rather than the negative ones, and it can help you live a little bit more deliberately. So this week, I'd ask you to do that thought download. Write those thoughts down on a piece of paper, no judgment at all, get them on paper, walk away and come back and look at them. Become a student of your thoughts. Look at how your thoughts are having sort of an effect on your emotions. Each one of those thoughts, have a look at how it made you feel. And that is the secret to this living deliberately. A good tip as well, and a really good tip we'll look at again in the future, is try and reframe some of those thoughts. You know, say if you're like, oh, here's a good example. I went down to the shops, I forgot to get bread for my kids tomorrow. I can't believe I did all the rest of the shopping. I'm an absolute idiot. I forgot to get bread. This feeling of sort of I've failed gives you this emotion of sadness, of failure, of emptiness inside. You start to beat yourself up. It's no good, right? If you reframe that thought, all right, I forgot to get bread. However, I did get the rest of the shopping. Okay, so you're already in a more neutral place. Don't beat yourself up about forgetting the bread. Put yourself in a neutral place. Well, I got the rest of the shopping, and you know what? They can have pot noodle for lunch tomorrow rather than the sandwiches I planned. You see what I mean? You've already shifted that thought, softened the emotion, and made yourself feel better. And if you look at this piece of paper where you've written these thoughts, you can maybe try and soften a few of them, put more of them into neutral, and see how that affects your emotion. But it will show you, like I say, do that. Also practice thinking about things that make you feel good, make you feel bad, and you'll see how your thoughts affect your emotions and your feelings, right? So that's a good thing for today. Now, I hope you enjoyed the Omni-cast this week, bit shorter this week, but to the point, I'm sure. Please pop over to my website, download my free audiobook, Calm Mind, How to Feel Better in 7 Days. Go to www.thewellbeingwiz.com/calm-mind. That's thewellbeingwiz.com/thecalm-mind. So it's /calm-mind. Sorry, I put the in there. Try again. www.thewellbeingwiz.com/calm-mind. Go there, download your free audiobook. There's a lot about thoughts in there as well. And I'll see you next week, but thank you very much for watching, everyone. Cheers.